Despite being one of the more vocal leaders at the event, Boris is seemingly the target of a lot of the protesters. Are their criticisms valid, do you think, in your opinion?
I can see why people are angry and they want to make their opinions felt, because at the end of the day, we've heard a load of promises from COP. Some of them really good, some of them could have been stronger, but we've heard it. But now we need to see the action, and we have had quite a lot of broken promises, not just from Boris, but from the political class in general about climate change for many years, decades. So I can see why people are angry about it. Do I support some of their actions? No, absolutely not. But do I support the feeling and the idea of the march, just to show support to the political leaders and businesses as well, that we need to do something about climate change and we need to take seriously the promises which have been made at COP? Then yes, absolutely. Yes, we should be making sure that they know that the public, their voters, they want change.
Good morning to you, Christian. I just wanted to ask you a little bit about Sir David Attenborough. We touched on this yesterday. I love the way he spoke at COP26 this week. He manages to walk this path, doesn't he? He doesn't lecture. He just has this sort of, well, he's a national treasure, but he kind of is almost like a vicar from a pulpit, preaching to, I don't know, it's probably a bad analogy.
He's got the experience and the authority.
There you go. That's exactly what I meant. But what he described was talking about hope rather than fear. And we talked about losing the message, perhaps, sometimes with quarters of society not potentially buying into the whole climate change emergency. Is that the message, then, that we have to focus on what we can do, the achievables, what the future might hold, rather than making everybody feel guilty?
100%. And I think the most powerful speech so far at COP has been Sir David Attenborough's. It was incredible. But also as well, I mean, I'm getting a lot of a lot of flack for coming on your programme and daring to say that I think climate change is an issue. And it's humans are having an effect on it. But anyone that doesn't think that, fair enough. Just watch Sir David Attenborough's video, 7 minutes long. He explains the science briefly, the science behind it, exactly as you said, in a real kind of just a non-lectury sort of way, in just a really kind of, these are the facts, this is what we've got to do. And you're right, his thing was, the actions that we should be taking should be based on hope and not fear. And that is absolutely right. And, I mentioned this before, it was great to have that positive message, because just before then, like the day before, we had some of the more outspoken protesters saying that we should be getting angry and that we should be, that sort of way was the way to do it. And I would say no. Sir David Attenborough's way is totally the way forward, and across generations as well, hopefully as well. I mean, if Sir David Attenborough cannot tell you a fact, then something's very wrong, I think, because, as you say, he is a national treasure, but he's also basing a lot of, all of his work as well on science as well, and I think that's really important. I think, and I've seen recently, over the past few weeks, lots of things on social media. It would just be a meme or just an image or just a short video of a fact, and then people will think that is the case, and they'll repost it, and then it gets this kind of magnification, and that fact may not be based on any scientific fact at all, and it's just been lost, through all the retweets or whatever it may be. The actual scientific fact has been lost, and I think we do need to kind of base everything that we're doing on scientific fact. And then we always get people say, oh yes, but this year was the coldest, or this year was the hottest, and you think, well, yes, that's very possible, because climate change doesn't mean that it's always constantly going to get hotter every single day. That's not how the climate works. It fluctuates, and it's just, what we're looking at is that the chance of those fluctuations between extreme events, that chance gets more. That's what we're talking about when we get to climate change. It's not that, as I say, every single day gets hotter or gets wetter. It's the chances of that hotness or coldness being extreme. That's what we're going to see more of in the future as the climate changes. And Sir David Attenborough is the fella to tell you that.
Yeah. Listen, we always get so many emails about COP26 and climate change and kind of the stuff that you're saying, Christian, when we come on. I mean, there's one that's just come in here from Julian. Why do we never hear climate activists or politicians quote the fact that the internet has a bigger carbon footprint than global air traffic? Another one here. How come we don't hear at least one of the 50 scientists that sent and signed a letter to the UN saying there isn't a climate emergency, and grown-ups have been indoctrinated, etc.? Why don't we question the facts? What do you say to people like that?
I understand that you might think like that completely, and it's good to kind of, always question. But when it comes to an issue like this, I think you have to just go with the consensus of scientific belief, because how science works is that if I come up with an idea and I want to get it published and get it out there, it has to go through peer review. So it has to go through to a variety of scientists, and they can kind of look at it and pick holes in it. And then if I can, my facts or my thoughts are still kind of can stand up to that scrutiny, then it gets put out there into the wider scientific community, and then even more scientists can pick holes in it. And if you have a theory or a fact which cannot stand that scrutiny, then it never really gets out there. And I think what we have here is the climate change science has withstood an awful lot of scrutiny and more evidence. And as we've learned more and as technology gets better, we've learned more and more. Some people, as you say, there's 50 scientists, may not agree. However, they their support for what they're saying doesn't stand up to scientific scrutiny, and that's the issue. Public scrutiny is very different. It's trial by Twitter, but scientific scrutiny is based by scientists doing science on your research or on your findings or your thoughts. And if your theory can withstand that, then it should be given the respect that it deserves, such as climate change.
Yeah, OK, really well explained. And look, it's really important for us to be able to put these points to you because, as I say, we do get lots of emails. Yesterday, following our interview with you, we got lots of people, baby boomer generation, really offended at the discussion between youngsters being in favour of changing their habits and perhaps needing to educate the older generation. What's your take on that?
Yeah, well, first of all, let's be honest. When we're kind of talking about educating generations, there's always going to be individuals and groups who are incredibly educated and incredibly up to speed. So generalizations are always an awful thing to do. Well, what we kind of touched on yesterday was the fact that the young people, school children, my kids and older, are getting a lot of education about climate change science. And that's not climate change, that's climate change science. So the science behind climate change and all sorts of aspects of biology around climate change, ecology, all sorts of things, as well as atmospheric. So it's a whole wide kind of range of areas. And perhaps some of the older generations just didn't get that in school because it wasn't taught. We're only just finding out some of this stuff. But we also touched on as well about kind of getting everyone more connected with the outside world and with the natural world of whatever generation that you are. And I can speak as 40-odd-year-olds, and I'm busy with life, etc., etc. Sometimes I lose my connection with the outside world, and I think we should all be trying to re-educate ourselves or in general to try to get out there into nature to kind of reconnect again, because if we feel that connection, then hopefully we're going to want to kind of look after it. We're not going to want to drop litter or use single-use plastic, or take a car to the shops if it's just 200 yards away, and use a bike to stop that sort of pollution as well. So it's just about kind of re-educating all ourselves, no matter what age you are, about climate change science. I mean, have a look at it. If you're the sort of person that retweets kind of stuff that you just see a meme about, then take a step back, look at some of the legitimate websites, scientific websites, even try and read a scientific paper. Some of them are just interesting.
Christian, just very quickly, Rob says there's no scientific consensus. Us peasants have done our homework and the data is being manipulated to skew the results.
I don't think you can really manipulate. Science doesn't really, published science doesn't really work like that. You can go back and see the science, and we'd get into an awful lot of trouble, and we'd all certainly lose our jobs if we start manipulating facts.
Welcome to the GB News YouTube channel. You can watch us live 24 hours a day, catch up on your favourite shows, and join in the conversation in the comments below.
Don't forget to subscribe and you'll never miss any of our exclusive content.